Would I stop? Would I go back to a pre-transition life? Would I erase being trans from who I am as a person? No, absolutely not. My name is Taylor Lakhryst. I am a trans woman, and I'm so proud to be who I am. Hello fellers and dwellers, welcome to another episode of Dwhell On It, a series where I, Taylor, answer your questions about my lived experience as a trans woman. If you're new to the channel, what Dwhell On It is like I was just saying, it's your questions that I answer, and those come in by comments or by DMs from anyone who's looking for a little more information about the trans community, life as a trans individual, and sometimes honestly just regular old chit-chat anyway. So if you'd like to contribute questions of your own, please feel free to include yourself in the conversation. Also, if you have not subscribed yet, please make sure to subscribe. That way you can stay notified in case there's any future episodes you'd like to check out right away. There's a little notification icon thing, I think, that can keep you posted if you like those types of things as well. Please make sure to hit like on all the episodes as well too, especially if you enjoy the content. That certainly helps get some extra visibility on these videos. And speaking of videos and visibility, before I get too deep into anything else, the previous 3 episodes all ended up having an element of seriousness that I didn't really plan. Well, one of them I did, right? But they all ended up becoming a lot more serious in the big picture. So please make sure to create time. Episodes 54, 55, and 56. Episode 54, Canada voted to police women's bodies. It sounds like one thing, and it definitely is that thing, but it's also something that many might not recognize. It is one of my longer episodes. We can call it a feature film. Please create the time to check it out if you have not yet, and please make sure to encourage others to check it out too. Episode 55, something talking to goldfish. That's the part that I pay attention to the most. I came up with an analogy on the fly that I think is incredibly important, especially to cisgender individuals. If you are a trans individual looking to share a message with cis people, or if you're a cis person wondering what the hell am I talking about, please create the time to take a look at episode 55. Somehow that got a little more passionate than I remember recording, because when I was editing after the fact, I'm like, wow, where did this come from? So if you like to hear spicy takes, please take a look at 55 and share that as well with as many people as you can. And episode 56 was a review of a review from CBC's Ombudsman after my concern about my appearance on CBC The National after some time with the former Conservative Party leader of Canada, Aaron O'Toole. Those 3 all ended up becoming a little longer than normal, so please create the time to check them out. And this one, I hope we can keep a little shorter, even though this intro is already about as long as a video in that sense. So let's get started with a visual description really quickly as well. My name's Taylor. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a 6'1" white transgender woman. I'm in my living room / gym / office, as I always like to say, because depending on the time of day, it does a different thing. Beige walls behind me as usual. We've got a mirror on the wall. It's midday again, so the blinds are, you can see some sunlight coming in through the closed blinds. Behind me, I've got an air conditioner that is turned off. I've got 3 pieces of gym equipment, which is my treadmill, my elliptical, and my recumbent bike. Myself personally, I've got what feels like greasy hair, I'm not gonna lie, right? But it is washed. I washed it this morning, but for some reason it feels greasy. However, it's out, it is long and wavy, it is past my armpits, it's blonde, and I'm wearing my old glasses. I'm so happy to have my old glasses back. They're cat's eye frame with a tortoiseshell, like a light tortoiseshell color, and they certainly accentuate these 3 piercings underneath my right eye, going in a small, medium, large fashion, going outwards towards a cluster earring on the top of my right ear. I've got 2 stud piercings. One you can see, I've got a nose piercing as well. Naked face, I've got a gray v-neck, longer sleeve t-shirt top on, and I think that kind of sums it up in a nutshell. Treaty 1 territory is where I live and I work, and I think we can get right into this. Hopefully we can make this one a short one, so here's hoping we don't get too emotional this time around. How important is being trans to your overall identity? Speaking of being emotional, I am a trans woman. I am very proud to be a trans woman. I'm Taylor before I'm trans. Does that make sense? My life doesn't center around trans things before Taylor thinks. I fully acknowledge that I am a trans individual. I fully acknowledge there are oppressions that I deal with because I'm trans. I fully acknowledge there's life experiences that are unique to me compared to many other people because I am trans. But I also don't walk into the world being like, I'm trans, I'm trans, I'm trans, I'm trans, I'm trans. That said, I fully acknowledge supporting trans-based artists. I fully acknowledge that there's ecosystems that are more trans-friendly and welcoming and so on like that. So I want to point that out. You know, if I have to spend my money somewhere, of course, I'd prefer to support trans individuals in however capacity that may look like. But at the same time, when I came out, I didn't all of a sudden, you know, wipe all of my music playlists and replace them all with trans artists. Right? I didn't, you know, all of a sudden change all the things in and around me to identify trans lives here type of things. That said, I still carry a lot of blatant subtleties, if that kind of makes sense. For starters, I know I'm visibly trans. Well, I feel I'm visibly trans. Let's just put it that way. And so that already, I know I own, I embrace that. I know already that where I go, trans. I get that. And knowing that also it becomes such an automatic that I don't think about that. That said, as I mentioned, blatant subtleties, when I get my nails done, almost every single time is a story. What's funny with these ones is I specifically asked to make the most boring and emotionless nails possible, yet I can still go to a gala tonight if I have to. But nonetheless, if you pay attention to some of my nails in previous episodes and ongoing episodes, there's usually a theme or a story, depending on if it's a time of the month or a very important landmark to me or however it goes. And oftentimes I'll have nails that are, you know, they'll have like a pink and a blue and a white character to them. They're not flagrant, but it's my way of saying to the world, these are trans colors because I'm a trans woman, right? So it's little things like that. I am ridiculously proud of who I am. If someone ever asked me if I wanted to be a cis person instead of a trans person, I just want to be me. I couldn't ever ask to want to be a cis person, but I don't feel that I'm obligated to endure the harm caused by not being a cis individual. Would I stop? Would I go back to a pre-transition life? Would I erase being trans from who I am as a person? No, absolutely not. My name is Taylor Lakhryst. I am a trans woman, and I'm so proud to be who I am. Being trans is not important to my identity. However, my identity wouldn't be what it is without me being trans. I don't go out of my way to point out that I'm trans, but I do go out of my way and into the way of others to ensure that there's more equitable spaces, more inclusive spaces, change happening, oppression minimized, and so on for trans individuals who aren't able to carry themselves with perhaps that same amount of pride or safety or comfort. I know I can go places and just exist. That's what I do. I just go. I go where I need to be, as I need to be, the place that I need to be there. But if there's ever a time when I need to go ahead and try to flip a table, I'll use the fact of me being a trans individual and being able to speak with that lived experience to hopefully create that change necessary so that the next person in line behind me doesn't have to fight and they can just live their life. Do you play games? What game universe would you want to live in? I don't play games anywhere near as much as I used to. And that's honestly mainly because I feel like if I'm playing games, I'm not working on creating the change that I still feel is incredibly necessary. It's not even about overdue. This is a crisis we're in right now. There is a fundamental war against trans individuals happening right now. And unfortunately, I just can't sit back and play games. And you know what? That's because my capacity for that is in a different place than many other people. I'm not expecting everyone to keep up with me, but I know that if I had to pick between go ahead and flip tables or go ahead and turn on the PlayStation, I'm going to go flip tables. When it gets to a point where fundamental existence does not feel threatened, then perhaps I can turn on the PlayStation or the Xbox or whatever and just not feel guilty about that. I haven't played a game in a small while. The last one that I played, I believe, was Dark Souls 3. Before that was Bloodborne. Before that was The Last of Us. I played WWE 2K19. I'll play a few games, but I'm not married to any sort of game or whatever. Oh, and Horizon Zero Dawn I played not terribly long ago, which I loved. Horizon Forbidden West is something that I would love to play. I would love to play Forbidden West, but if I wanted to do that, then that means I'm purchasing a PlayStation 5, because if I'm going to play that game, I'm going to play it, the way that it was designed, which then also means I'd be upgrading my TV, because as much as I love my TV, I'd want to make sure that it's something new, 4K, blah, blah, blah. If I turn on a video game, it's just to stop doing what I'm doing. If anything, on my phone, I've been playing Grindstone, which is just a little puzzle kind of thing that came out of Apple Arcade, right? It's just a little getaway from life, but it's not a commitment to really spend time with or anything like that. And even related to that, there'd be times when I'd be playing or trying to play through Dark Souls 3, and there would be days where I'm like, all right, I'm going to turn it on. And as soon as the loading screen turned on, I knew that because of the type of game that it was, I'm like, no, I don't have the capacity for this, and just turned it off. Video games are supposed to take me away, not make me think more than I need to, because I spend enough time thinking with everything else. In terms of a game universe, honestly, I can't think of one off the top of my head. However, thinking on the fly, a game that I truly loved, how does it get pronounced? Deus Ex Human Revolution? I'm thinking off the top of my head. I'm not going to bother looking it up or anything like that, but I was playing it on my Xbox One. I believe the character was Adam Jensen, I believe is who it was. It's kind of cyberpunk about it. I think it would kind of like, you could certainly look at it in the same type of universe as what is it, Cyberpunk 2077? I think that's what it was. Deus Ex Human Revolution. I loved. It was relatable, right? To be in the protagonist's point of view. I'm not going to spoil it for anyone who hasn't played it, but I honestly thought it was a fantastic game. I loved it. I know that I for sure want to play the sequel, and I've got it sitting on my Xbox, except I stopped subscribing to Gold, so I can't play it until I resubscribe to Gold, and I'm in no rush to do anything like that. That was kind of a neat universe that if I had to think to live in, I don't want to live in a fantasy land. I don't need to live in high fantasy. I don't need to live in a world of sci-fi, even though obviously Deus Ex was, poking at sci-fi, but it's also not really unrealistic either. To me, it just seemed like it was on a logical course of where future is going, so it was really relatable in that type of sense. I'm not gonna lie, one of the most fun game universes that I played was the Borderlands series. I haven't even played Borderlands, the pre-sequel? Because that came out after Borderlands 2, which I loved the finish of, and so because of that, I didn't want to play the pre-sequel and ruin my last memory of Borderlands. And I haven't played Borderlands 3 yet. I don't know if I would want to live in that environment, because that's wild, but I easily was able to fall into a game like that and just enjoy myself. I hope that kind of creates an idea about the type of games that I've played and would play again should I create the time for that. But yeah, game universe, I'd have to say the world of the Deus Ex universe there would probably be it. That was a fun question. What parts of your life have changed the most since you came out as trans? I've answered this question often in a variety of different ways. I almost feel like I should go through the bag and start screaming out ones that are almost the same, because I'm going to do this. I don't know which video I'm going to use yet, but there's going to be a video right here. It's going to be a video of something related to it. It really boils down to my social life, I think, is the easiest way to sum it up in a nutshell. I came out on my birthday, June 7th, 2020. I started HRT February 1st of 2020. In Winnipeg, COVID started to really get its grips on things in the middle of March of 2020. So my transition and even coming out socially and so on, that has all been in the same sort of timeline as COVID. So there's interesting overlaps about what got affected exclusively because of me coming out as trans, or what is a byproduct of being part of a COVID era, and how people react is really augmented by COVID doing COVID things. It's a unique scenario, at least, to me, just kind of based on, things and stories and observations and things you would hear from people in the past, right? So nonetheless, if I had to just assume, this is a big assumption, that COVID was a non-issue, big assumption, I still go back to my social life. My phone book's never been thinner. I've never had as many people who once considered themselves as, friends of mine to no longer exist. Even after I would send a text, there's no response. I'd include them in what I would consider to be an important email, and there's nothing behind that. The amount of ghosting is, it's silly, it's laughable, right? Because, I see you. I'm not offended by that because I'm not the one who's shown really bad character. If you ask me, people who would have no problem picking up the phone, calling me or texting or whatever to see if I wanted to go out with them, go play sports with them, be included with them, to all of a sudden no longer existing, even though I continue to put myself into their vision. I don't think that has much to do with COVID if you ask me, if I have to break down a common denominator, because just as much I live in a universe where COVID exists as well. But otherwise, aside from that, if I was to go ahead and speak on something as a positive, I have never felt more real, right? Because now I am, right? I'm authentic and my mind is free. When I feel emotions for what they are at face value and no longer clouded, right? Like every single thing I did at every single time always had this part of it saying, hey, when are you going to come out? Or it'd be better if you came out, or you'd be happier if you came out, or it's really unfortunate the world isn't giving you a place to come out. Non-stop, no matter what emotion I was presenting, that was part of it. There was no question there. I think that's the easiest way to sum it up. I continue to underline the biggest thing that's changed, and I doubt it's a surprise for anyone, is literally my social life. And it's not for me, not connecting. It's about people disconnecting. And I think that's a pretty big difference. And then, like I said, I've never felt more authentic, and I've never felt more happy to be able to experience the emotions that I experience. And also with that, on a combination of both, the people who I've met and the people who are still my friends to this day, whether it's before or from before I transitioned, or people who I've met and have stood beside me since I've transitioned. It really shows a new layer of authenticity that those people carry as well. It's definitely something that I couldn't have ever imagined experiencing in a past life. What can you say to a mature transgender woman who feels she won't ever be loved? FYI, I'm recently divorced. Oh, I remember writing this one down however long ago it was, and I was remembering at that time to be like, okay, hopefully by the time you draw this out, you'll be able to have a more emotionally conscious answer. Okay, I'm going to start with this. I'm going to speak in very much a Taylor way. It'll happen. Now, let's get past that part. Love is something that I love. I've said time and time again. I'll put a video here just to show it. But I love love. Love is so valuable to me. And in a past life, I was so concerned about being loved. I was so concerned about being loved so much by my partner that, if I was going to come out, she would still love me so much that it wouldn't scare her away, that she would stand beside me and support me all the way through. I'm not going to say I've given up on love, because believe me, I love love and I know where my heart is. Love is still crucial to me. I feel that if there's one thing to, go ahead and be my happily ever after, it's just to finally be at that point of being in a loving, happy relationship now that I'm finally in love with myself. And that's the most important part. Before you worry about getting loved by anyone else, the most important thing is to love yourself. Just the other day, I spoke to someone saying that one of the greatest feelings that I had shortly after I came out publicly, I believe it was in August-ish, is when it kind of happened. But something was happening, and all of a sudden, I just had all of the shackles of feeling like I needed to care about what other people cared fall off. Whether that meant if they respected me, whether that meant they thought I was attractive, whether that meant that they were going to love me, whatever. What other people thought of me, gonzo. And that was one of the most liberating feelings that I had. Even during that time, I was still working on, still some self-acceptance and just getting over some doubts, I guess is kind of a good way to put it. But from that moment to realize that the only person that I truly have to care about is me was such a huge, 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 huge hurdle to come over and a feeling to experience. Do I have a fear that I won't ever get loved? Absolutely. I feel very strongly that if I don't get loved in that intimate sort of way, It boils down to the fact of me being a lesbian, demisexual, and trans. I feel that the combination of all of those, and not to say that any of those are bad or poor or problems, I'm not announcing that, but what I'm saying is that each one of those may have a reason why someone who you love may not want to love you back. It's a very difficult feeling to think that, would you love me if I was not who I am? Because I know I'm lovable. So what's the barrier? What's the boundary? It's a very relatable feeling, a feeling like being someone who is not a cisgender individual or cisnormative. You can look at a cisgender heterosexual individual, but they might be a person of color, and all of a sudden their dating pool just got smaller because of racist individuals. Same thing when it comes to people who have disabilities that are just as lovable, but people would automatically assume that they're not lovable or as lovable because of their disability, their class, their family situation, and so on, right? Like, there's all things that are relatable that other people who are looking for love too experience because of judgment by others. And whether that's an innocent judgment or a very bigoted take. So I can't really say that you'll get loved, because I don't ever want to put that in the universe. And then you're going to wake up every day and be like, Taylor said I'm going to get loved. Time goes on and be like, Taylor said I was going to be loved. And that means Taylor lied. I'm not saying that. But what I am going to say is that everybody is lovable. Everybody is responsible for being lovable. Remember as well that every individual has to provide themselves to the world around them to be lovable in a way that's able to get loved back. If you don't communicate love and loving actions to people who you love, those people who you love might not get those signs, those hints, those tells. Love is as much a verb as it is a noun. And love is effort. Love is something that everyone must work for and work with. I don't really have an answer that is kind or cheek pinching or head patting. Spoiler, that's usually not my style anyway. And I don't mean it to come across as like smacking someone down. And I'm not going to be the, I'm a realist type of person, because I'm not trying to say that either. What I'm saying is I absolutely understand the feelings. I've mentioned before that I'm divorced. I'm not recently divorced. My divorce was finalized in 2012. So I've long since been not divorced, or whatever that marital status is after then. But I've also never been in a relationship since I came out. I haven't been in anything close to an intimate connection since October of 2019. I think I might have said 2018 before, but I think 2018 is the last time that I had a relationship that was recognized as a relationship by other people. But nonetheless, I haven't had an intimate connection in years. I can completely empathize with feeling like you won't ever be loved. And what's frustrating is oftentimes I'd hear the words, I love you. And then sometimes I'd wonder, well, where are you? So I get it. I totally get it. Wanting to be loved is going to keep you in a place that you don't want to be. And it's a finish line that you don't want to chase. Maybe I'm not the right person to say it because, I've got a very unique life path. But for me, love is organic. I don't use dating apps. I don't look for love. I don't ask people if they know anyone to hook me up with or anything like that. Love happens when it happens. I know who I love and I know who I want to be part of my life. And I know people who I don't want to be connected with intimately. It's all just organic. I can't say to follow that model, but what I can say is that my ambitions every day is to just be the best person that I can be for the world around me. And if love comes from that, then love will come from that. If you're the type of person who does go on dates and is looking for a partner and so on, then be authentic. It'll happen by the right person at the right time. It sounds so cheesy and poetic, but you can't induce love. You have to put yourself out there to receive love. And you also have to do loving efforts to get loved. It's funny, INFJ personality type, super introverted, demisexual, so not the type of person who's just physically interested in people unless there's a connection. I'm like the last person to ask for love guidance. I do hope when it's all said and done that two things happen. One, before you worry about being loved by anyone else, you begin to love yourself. And two, that after you love yourself and feel super confident and comfortable with who you are, that love finds you. Is there anywhere you feel more out of place now than before you transitioned? No, actually, quite the opposite. I've never felt like I own my space more than ever before. Everywhere I go, I own my footprint. Every square foot, where my shoes are, where my boots are, or whatever it is that I'm wearing on my feet at the time are, I own that space. That is mine because now I am there. I'm not wondering what life would be like if I was authentic or happy. I own every single square foot, so I've never felt out of place anymore. If anything, it's the people who feel that I don't belong who give this idea to themselves that I'm out of place. I belong where I belong, and I belong every single place my feet stand. I own my space, and I've never felt more confident about that footprint I stand in than ever before. In a past life, I was so concerned about fitting in and being welcome and hopefully being the type of person that people would want to be around and to stay around. In a past life, I was trying to please everybody else so that I would continue to be welcome next time. Now, I'm not saying that I'm happy with getting dismissed, ignored, or anything like that. I'm not happy with the fact that other people choose to decide that I'm out of place based on their bigotry. Okay? I'm not saying that I'm cool with that. But what I am saying is that I am my best self. I am my most authentic self. I have never been more real. I have never been more honest. I have never been more passionate. I have never been more lovable. I have never been more me than ever before. And because of that, I belong where I choose to belong. If anyone chooses to assume that I don't belong somewhere, that's them, not me. I acknowledge places I mentioned before about safety and, I don't just walk into wherever, right, without, having an element of consciousness behind it. But when it's all said and done, I belong where I choose to belong. I couldn't be more happy to have that confidence in my footprint, in my square footage that I stand, and my confidence of being the person who I am. If people don't want to include me, that's their loss, not my loss. Let's wrap this one up. This was oddly a lot less emotional than the last three, so I hope this is a nice little refresher for everyone else as well too. Thank you so much, of course, for making your way through this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to please hit like, and also those other videos that I mentioned earlier, episodes 54, 55, and 56, please create the time to check those out. I know they are small marathons in that. Please catch up on those episodes if you have not watched them yet or listened to them, and please make sure to hit like, hit share. Please enjoy. Those ones are so important if you ask me. And speaking of liking and sharing, as I mentioned, please hit like on this episode if you have not yet. If you enjoyed the content, please make sure to share this as well. My reach is only as far as I can reach. I say this all the time. I'm only able to speak to the people who I'm able to access based on how I provide this content, and that's where I need you, the viewer, the listener, to help share this message to people who I don't have access to. Your help is so important, and I need you a ton for that. So please make sure to share this, and please subscribe as well if you haven't yet. Again, as usual, more subscribers means more people who get to see this. More people who get to see this is everything I just mentioned earlier. In the comments, as always, is a link to a campaign hosted by New Mode, and what that is a call to action to encourage political leaders and elected officials to incentivize the businesses, the companies, the organizations in the communities and neighborhoods that they are part of to optimize their CSR, their corporate social responsibilities, and with that, making a call to action to let them know that it is seen and it is important that those businesses, organizations, and companies are thinking about the communities that they're part of. Otherwise, we can wrap this one up. So thank you again for taking the time to watch this video. And if you have any questions or comments, of course, please make sure to include them in the comments or send them by DM, depending on the platform you're checking this out on. And otherwise, let's wrap this one up. So I hope you have a great rest of your night. Have a great rest of your week, as I always love to say. May as well keep going on with that. Talk to you later.